things came through Catholicism, and yet we see these things in most Christian churches today, which leaves us to believe that the many flavors of Christianity is nothing more than branches of the RCC.
When the apostles went out to spread the truth, they were harmless as doves, just as the Messiah told them to be. But when you look at how Christians went forth throughout the world, were they harmless as doves? No. When you look at the Roman Catholic Church and how they went out to push what they call the gospel to the four corners of the earth, how did they do it? They went forth with violence, right? With the Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. Just violence, right? Death after death after death. In every country they went into trying to spread this so-called gospel of theirs, what did they do? They went in like wolves, because that's what they are.
For the spread of the gospel. There are estimates that 14 million native North and South Americans were killed by Europeans and their American-born descendants in democide in the conquest of the Americas. Much of this, especially in the Caribbean and South America, was driven by European Roman Catholicism. Vatican support for this, 1455. Here, Pope Nicholas V supports the killing, forcible conversion, and enslaving of unbelievers found in the new lands. The Massacre of Indians. Thanksgiving is a classic example of the actions of Christians on the native Indians. The truth is, after a colonial militia had returned from murdering the men, women, and children of an Indian village, the governor proclaimed a holiday and feast to give thanks to the Lord for the massacre. The witch hunts. Many people think 1 million innocents were killed by the witch hunter Christians. The manipulating of the true scripture. The removal of God's true name, Yah, and replaced with Lord, and the adding of Jehovah to various scriptures. This was all done in the name of religion. The removing of books out of the Bible. There is estimated to be about 100 books that have been either removed or not included in the Bible. The Catholics even debated on whether or not to remove the book of Revelation out of the Bible. This is all the horror that came out of Christianity through the Roman Catholic Church. Even the Ku Klux Klan considers themselves Christians. This is why they wear the cross and look at all the evil they have done in the name of Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church has influenced every religion on the face of the earth.
What caused me to come out of the Christian church, what I know is Sun Worship today, what caused me to come out was that I was challenged by a group of brothers that was studying their word. And one of them I knew through doing gospel music. We both did gospel music, and I seen him at an event, in the Louisville, Kentucky area. And we passed each other CDs out. And when I called the brother after a few months of seeing him that day, something was different about him. So he invited me over to a Bible study. And leading up to that point, before I even talk about the Bible study, leading up to that point, I was coming to church Sunday after Sunday, still a minister, and I heard my pastor go on like a 6-month spree of talking about finances. And it seemed like all he was worried about and concerned about was money. And I was already fed up because I wasn't growing. I was at a place of being stagnant. And this brother invited me over to do a Bible study with him. The night before, he sounded real passionate. He sounded real dedicated to the scriptures. He sounded like a different man than when I seen him at that function some months ago. So I went to the service the next morning, and I was talking, and I couldn't remember what the pastor spoke, because that's how it is in churches. You just catch a glimpse. But I can remember one key thing that he said. And he said, you have to watch those people that do not have a covering. So I knew that this brother didn't have a so-called covering of what I thought he had. And I sat down with the brother. And then I sat down with a few more brothers, and we started to get into the scriptures, and they started to show me things in the Bible that I never paid attention to, line upon line, precept on precept, and I never seen that before. I never seen people that had that type of Bible knowledge, and they challenged me. They challenged me on my beliefs. They challenged me on if we were supposed to keep Yah's law still. They challenged me on his day of rest. Was that still valid? Was that still important? They challenged me on the certain type of foods that we're supposed to eat, which I felt that was not important. So I was challenged in so many different areas, and it made me have to reevaluate what I was participating in, what I was a part of, what I spent so many years of my life dedicating myself to. It made me think about those things, and when I studied and did more research, I didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
What religion has committed the worst mass murders in history and even wiped out entire populations? What group of people have convinced the whole world that everyone throughout history, from the beginning of time, can be seen through the paintbrush of Michelangelo? I find it amazing that most people are more loyal to their religion and don't have the same loyalty to the truth or to the Most High God.
Why is it that the words of these liars and history thieves treated as solid gold? They have done such a mind rape on the human population that every culture seems to be captivated by them. You have Asian people with blonde hair. Who is it that everyone on the earth wanders after to the point of changing their eye color, their hair color, and even bleaching their skin? I mean, you have Japanese people even trying to get the slant out of their eyes.
President Obama decides that during the National Prayer Breakfast, he's going to give the United States a history lesson. He's going to give us all his knowledge of the history of the Crusades, trying to somehow assimilate the Crusades with ISIS and somehow make this about Christians having killed Muslims 700-800 years ago. And I don't know, I guess we're supposed to forgive what ISIS is doing right now because of what happened during the Crusades. You know, the President of the United States has absolutely no idea what to do about ISIS and terrorism. He might as well just stand up during the National Prayer Breakfast and say, look, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I'm not going to say another word.
That's not what he's doing, Matt. What he is doing is reminding the hypocrites in America that when you attempt to condemn an entire religion of Islam based on the behavior and actions of a small few, well, that same thing could have been done during the Christian Crusades. And just right here in America doing Jim Crow and doing slavery, there was white Christians who justified slavery from the Bible, and the Bible never justified
hold
slavery.
on. We're talking about
So he was on point.
We're talking about almost 1,000 years ago. The human race, except for these radical Islamists, have evolved over the past 1,000 years. This has got nothing to do with what took place during the Crusades. And speaking of history, as you put it, do you remember why the Christians were slaughtering the Muslims?
Hold on,
because they were reacting to the very same thing that is taking place now with ISIS.
No, they were fighting for control of Jerusalem. Because Muslims and Christians have always had a claim to Jerusalem, as well as Jews. Matt, it wasn't 1,000 years ago. Right here in America,
yeah, it was.
Just 20 years ago, 30 years ago, white Christians have lynched and killed black people and said it was all right because the Bible gave white Christians the right to do that.
And you know what, Quanell? I'm going to give you that because that actually historically did happen. But slavery was ended based upon what was in the Bible. The very same Bible was used to end slavery. Go back and read Dr. Martin Luther King.
That's a damn lie.
The hell it is.
You use slavery in America, right, Christians, to bargained and justified slavery. It wasn't America and the Bible that ended it. It was those who fought that wicked behavior in America that
go back and read your history. Go back and read what Dr. Martin Luther King said. He quoted the Bible everywhere he went.
Slavery didn't end with the Bible because the United States Constitution stated on the 13th Amendment, it's legal if you're convicted of a crime.
End slavery.
Slavery is still alive in America if you're convicted of a crime.
The president he likes to take little pieces of history and use it to his advantage.
He's reminding you white folk who are hypocrites of your shameful history.
Let me tell you something about the president. He's no friggin' historian.
The man told the truth whether you like it or not.
Christopher Columbus was a Christian. He thought it was a blessing to be able to rape young girls and subjugate people to slavery. It was Christians that instituted the slave trade. The very first thing they decided to do was take slaves when they got here. Why? Because they were too weak to build their own country. They took Africans as slaves and brought them to this country and killed most of them, and those that didn't die, they treated horribly, using the scriptures to justify their wickedness. They would quote scriptures like, "Servants, obey in all things your masters." The slave masters were all Christians. Now, I believe in the Messiah of the scriptures, the Son of the Most High God. I teach the scriptures. I believe in the receiving of the Spirit with the evidence of the gifts of the Spirit. However, I refuse to call myself a Christian. Christians need to do their research and look at what they're calling themselves. Now, this should be enough to make all Christians everywhere research the history of their religion. It should make them start to seek the Most High for the truth. Didn't the Messiah, Yahushua, say, "They that worship me must worship me in spirit and truth"? But we want the spirit, but we don't want the truth though, right?
The transatlantic slave trade. It was the so-called Christians that enslaved and killed more than 100 million blacks. The early presidents owned several slaves and justified their evil actions using the Bible.
And that servant, which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. Did you hear that? Stripes. That nigga that don't obey his Lord, that's his master, do you see? That there nigga shall be beaten with many stripes. Now many signifies a great many. 40, 100, 150 lashes. That's scripture.
The Lord said, "The fear of ye and the dread of ye shall be on every beast of the earth."
Give me that horn! You better give me that horn! You better give me that horn!
After this, we'll see if you break eggs again.
The transatlantic slave trade began around the mid-15th century, where Portuguese interests in Africa moved away from the fabled deposits of gold to a much more readily available commodity, slaves. By the 17th century, the trade was in full swing, reaching a peak toward the end of the 18th century. It was a trade which was especially fruitful since every stage of the journey could be profitable for merchants. the infamous triangular trade. United States presidents owned slaves.